A record 19,000 unaccompanied children crossed our southern border just in the month of March, and now the federal government is working to find places to house all of those immigrants. But Governor Kim Reynolds says it won't be happening in Iowa.
Are you hearing yet of any of the migrants or migrant children being moved into Iowa?
No, I have not yet. I mean, they did reach out to DHS, and we said no. Other states have had their National Guard adjutant generals. They've reached out to them to ask. We will not do that. We don't have the facilities. We are not set up to do that. This is not our problem. This is the president's problem. He's the one that's opened the borders.
That was Governor Reynolds yesterday morning on the WHO radio show Need to Know with Jeff Angelo. She says her priority is the health and safety of Iowa, and that the state doesn't have the facilities to make it happen. This decision doesn't sit well with some people, the governor's reaction to it. That includes Connie Ryan. She is the executive director of the Interfaith Alliance of Iowa. Connie, you say the governor's response here goes against Iowa values. Explain why.
Well, we have a history of really reaching out to folks and caring for and sheltering folks. And that really, you can point to Governor Ray back in the mid-'70s. That also happened also in 2005 with when Katrina happened. And folks take care of, are concerned about people regardless of their address. And so we believe that Governor Reynolds is wrong on this, and that we should at least give more consideration to the possibility of housing, particularly we're talking about children.
The governor said we don't have the facilities and we're not set up to address this problem. Is she wrong? Do we have the facilities? Have you identified a place that these children could go in Iowa?
I don't know the answer to that, but what I want to have is a conversation about that. So if you look at what happened in, as I said, in the mid-'70s, we figured out how to do that. Iowans are resourceful and they care for people. And whether they're people of faith or whether it's from a secular perspective, Iowans care about people. And we certainly care about children that are at the border and are being housed in facilities that are just overcrowded. And so let's take a look at it. Let's have a conversation. And I think that Governor Reynolds was quick to say no. And I think that she could reconsider that and bring some folks together to have conversation about how we could make that work.
There's a big difference between caring for people and caring about people. You know, one is an action, right? Caring for people, that takes a lot of doing. That's where the rubber hits the road. And I'm curious what that would look like if you know, migrant children were to be transported to Iowa. How do you envision them being cared for?
Yeah, you know, I think that we look at the resources that we have in the state. And so we, you know, when Katrina happened, within a few days' time, through the work of DHS and through the work of organizations across the state and communities of faith, we figured out how to provide shelter for some of those folks. Obviously, this is different because we're talking about children and of a range of ages. So there are different circumstances, but what we're urging Governor Reynolds to do is to reconsider her position, and that let's have a conversation of how we can make this work. What are the resources that are available or that can be made available, and how can we make Iowa a welcoming place for these children who need shelter and who need compassionate care.
Connie, one of the tragedies of the situation at the border, the crisis on the southern border, is how families have been separated. A lot of these families were separated before these children ever arrived in the United States. We know parents sent their kids feeling that they were going to receive some type of asylum here. Are you concerned about taking kids another 1,000 miles away from those parents, that's essentially what moving them to Iowa would do, would be to increase that separation distance from their birth parents?
You know, I have confidence in the Biden administration. We've learned a lot of lessons from what has happened over the last couple of years, and where children have been separated from their families, from their parents. And so I think that we have learned those lessons, and that the Biden administration will be able to keep track of those kids and where they go. You know, they're keeping track of them now, and where they are. And so I have great confidence that we will be able to figure that piece out about it. What is most important right now is making sure the children are not housed in overcrowded situations, and that we look at options that are available in different states that could care for. We're not talking about thousands and thousands of children coming to Iowa. And, you know, I don't know the exact numbers, but it's hundreds of children. And so how can Iowans step up, and the organizations that are around, faith communities, the government, how can we work together to make sure these children have have adequate shelter and the care and safety that they need?
Yeah, and sadly, it is thousands, because there are 4,000 teenagers being held at a single facility in Dallas. Connie
Right.
Ryan
And
is the head of the. Yep.
It's thousands at the border, but the ones that we're talking about coming to Iowa, you know, I don't have a clear picture of what that number is, but I'd like to know what that is, what we were asked,
You'd
what
like to,
Iowa
you'd
was
like to
asked
have the
by the
discussion.
federal government.
You'd like to have the discussion.
Yes.
Connie Ryan is the executive director of the Interfaith Alliance of Iowa. Connie, thanks for coming on, and let us know if you have that discussion.
I would love to have the conversation, and thank you so much.
We'll be right back with more on the News at 4 right after this.